Great. Well, why don't we go ahead and start our conversation? We can spend as much time talking about the things that are of interest to you, but we've also asked each of our panelists to share a little bit with you about their own experiences based on what they've found to be most important, most influential, most helpful. So you should leave here with a lot of ideas today, and you have an opportunity to ask any of us any questions, and everybody up here probably has something to contribute to whatever you want to ask. So my name is Joy Adams. I work in the University Library in the Blackboard Support Office. We call it eLearning Support Services now. We're rebranding, but you may better know it as Blackboard Support. I've got a few of our cards up here if anybody's not already familiar with our services. Please feel free to grab one. I work as an instructional designer, if I didn't already say that. I'm also an online instructor. I'm an adjunct professor of geography at the University of Maryland, and I'm currently teaching literally now. So, as I think other folks on the panel are as well, and this is a very busy week of the semester for all of us, so thanks for making time to be here with us. Before we get started, I wanted to give each of the panelists an opportunity to introduce themselves and let you know where they're teaching. You can see some of that on the slide, but they can share anything else they wish to add. And I'd also like each of you to mention what you're doing in terms of online instruction, if you're just getting started or how long you've been doing it, maybe what kinds of courses you're doing online. So as I said, I teach geography fully online, human geography.
So I'm Michelle Lansigan. I'm a term faculty in the chemistry department, and I teach a course called Chem 250, Criminalistics, Crime and Society. We typically offer this as a traditional face-to-face class during the regular semester, but we've been offering it online during the summer. And this is my third time teaching it online. My first year wasn't as great, but my third year now, it's become a lot easier, and I'm going to share some of the things I've learned all throughout my experiences during those 3 years.
I'm Adele Dobrowski. I'm also term faculty in the biology department. I teach a course, Bio 200, which is structure and function of the human body online. This is my second summer teaching it online as I finish this up tomorrow. So I also teach it face-to-face during the semester, so it's been really interesting to kind of take some of what I do face-to-face, put it online, and then vice versa. So I'll talk a little bit about that.
Hi everyone, Andrea Carpenter. I'm a staff member over in Kogod in our School of Business. I work in our Career Center, and so I've taught some of our career courses, and so I'm bringing the perspective of someone who has not yet taught online, but I went through the training this summer, kind of anticipating, hoping to be able to put some of our coursework online in the future.
I'm David Rose. I work in CTRL. I am not an online instructor. I am actually a student in an online program right now at Purdue University, so if you wanted a student perspective on anything, I can provide that. But what we do in CTRL, we work closely with Joy, doing online learning. I guess the technical distinction would be they are technical aspects of Blackboard, and I guess we, of course, be focusing on more pedagogical aspects of online learning. Because as Michelle mentioned, it is a different experience teaching online. I also run a workshop for students who are taking online courses, so hopefully they are more prepared when they enter your classes about what their expectations are, because just like for faculty, it is different for students being in an online environment as well.
All right, well, welcome and thank you to everyone on the panel. Now, I should also say that your panelists were handpicked because they have very successfully gone through some of the different trainings offered here at AU and are some of our best students. So they are here to really give you some great examples of best practice, no pressure. But we picked these folks because they're doing such a great job doing innovative things using the technology at our disposal. So I think you're going to see a lot of really interesting examples and hopefully leave here with some creative ideas for your own courses. So our objectives today are, we're going to tell you a little bit about some training resources and opportunities for those of you who are interested in learning more about teaching online or e-learning strategies. So even if you're teaching a face-to-face course, some of these ideas about how to better utilize the technology may be very helpful to you. Our panelists will share their experiences, tips, and advice. And then we'll have time to talk to y'all about whatever you want to talk about. We'll have plenty of time for Q&A. After each presenter speaks, you'll have the opportunity to ask individuals questions, and then at the end, David's going to facilitate an open Q&A. You can ask any of us anything that you want, or just ask a question, and we'll probably all chime in. I think it's that kind of group. So, any questions about our plans before we get started? All right, super. So I'm going to start off just by giving you a quick welcome and introduction. Again, as I've mentioned, we put together a panel of folks who are going to bring a really diverse range of experiences to share with you about their own experiences with online teaching and learning. There are lots of opportunities here at AU that you can pursue if you want to learn more. And I've provided just a few examples here to kind of get you thinking about some things. So for example, over the next 2 more days of TRTW workshops, there are going to be a lot of sessions on different aspects of instructional technology, including Blackboard. So you might want to check the schedule and see if there's any other sessions that pique your interest. For example, if you're using the Blackboard Grade Center, you may be mystified by it, and there's going to be a workshop on it tomorrow. So please feel free to see us again at any of these sessions. Also, if you go on to CTRL's website, they have a calendar of events with all of their upcoming training activities. You'll see there's a very robust list of things already scheduled for the upcoming semester and beyond. We are working on our training schedule in my office on Blackboard training and on e-learning workshops. So be looking for that. I know that we're going to have sessions on things like accessibility for students who have disabilities and need accommodation. We're going to have sessions on efficient grading, sessions on avoiding academic integrity violations, how to promote academic honesty among your students. A lot of different things, ranging from things that are very technical and hands-on to things that are a little more pedagogical in terms of approaches to using the technology. There's some fantastic resources available to you on lynda.com. If you haven't checked it out, as an AU employee, you have access to all of those courses for free, which is really cool. They have courses on pretty much everything you can ever think of. It's quite amazing. And for example, I know they have an Introduction to Blackboard course that's 6 hours of little mini lessons that you can work through and learn more about Blackboard. As well as a lot of things, graphic design, how to design your PowerPoints to be more visually effective. Lynda.com has something for everybody, and it's free, so you might as well take advantage of it. You can also schedule a one-on-one consultation or a group training with anyone in my office, as well as with David and his colleagues over in CTRL. In my office, we see folks by appointment, or you can walk in. Same for you, David. Yep. Or if your department would like one of us to come in and do something at a faculty meeting or a special training just for you, we're also very open to doing those sorts of things as well. So we can customize the training to your specific needs for your department. And then finally, if you are trying to demystify the world of Blackboard, Blackboard has some really great online resources on their corporate website that I would strongly suggest checking out. It's a great first line if you need to know something quickly. You're always welcome to call our office, but you can also go online and watch these really short little training videos that will demonstrate specific things within the system. And there's also student-facing videos on a lot of those features that you could provide to your students if you want them to understand things like how to submit an assignment, how to post to a discussion board, etc. So we have a lot of opportunities for you to learn more. We really hope that you will reach out to us with any of your questions and concerns, both immediately after the workshop and beyond. We've already had a couple calls over in my office today of folks signing up after attending training, so we would really look forward to hearing from all of you. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and let you hear from our experts, our panelists. We're going to work in alphabetical order because it's easy. So our first speaker today is going to be Andrea Carpenter. Andrea, feel free to tell us anything else you'd like to about yourself before you begin your comments.
Sure, absolutely. So again, Andrea Carpenter, work in our COCA Center for Career Development. I love the world of career services. It's what I went to grad school specifically to do. I particularly love working with college-age students through learning. And really starting to teach in the last few years, doing adjunct teaching as a part of that with career courses has been really interesting because typically I do a lot of my work one-on-one. And I think that's kind of my sweet spot, sitting down with a student one-on-one and working with them. And obviously being in a classroom environment is different. And then trying to do work online is also going to be very different. So part of this process for me has been really interesting to think, okay, how can I take a lot of the work of a very specific content area, career services, which tends to be very personal for students, and how can I take what I already do in the classroom with them and put part of that online. So I'm still mulling that over, especially as part of the course taken this summer, thinking maybe I could start off with a hybrid format to try to work through. So some of the specific takeaways that I took away from the class and what I've thought about. First of all, just the experience of being a student again, taking the course was very interesting. You know, it's been a while since I was a student, and so just the experience of kind of looking at something through that lens again and realizing some of the questions and anxiety that I had going into the course helps me empathize with what our students experience, right? And in particular, I started to just kind of learn and thinking the information that was presented to me before I even showed up in a classroom really helped kind of allay some of that anxiety, and also just the support that I knew was available. So that helped give me some ideas of, okay, as I'm setting my next course, how would I provide that same experience for the students? There's another shift for me of even how much do I have set in stone or provided, right? And so I came into the course thinking, well, I don't necessarily want to have my course too set in stone because I want there to be flexibility with movement, and you know, once I get to know my students, then they can be making some different decisions, and I don't want to hold their hand too much by having a specific rubric for grading. And so I think I started to realize, especially when working with online students or teaching an online course, really wanting to make sure that those students have a lot of clarity of, here's what's going to be expected of me, right? Here's how I can be successful in this class, so that their energy can be put into producing good work and learning rather than just kind of trying to jump through some different hoops. So in particular, the importance of rubrics in online learning, really making it clear how they can see feedback. Even in my course that I've taught on the ground, I've provided a lot of the feedback through Blackboard, and one of the things that I realized through this class is that, you know, not all students are going to be clear on how they're actually seeing that feedback. So making sure that students know, if I'm using inline grading, how is that going to show up for you? And what is the schedule of when you can expect feedback from me? And then I think also rethinking participation and active learning and assessment. I think those are three big areas that I really thought through the summer of, what does that mean? How does that translate to an online format? Particularly the active learning and the peer learning. I think, you know, again, my content area is career development and business professionalism. And so trying to think with that, we do a lot of in-class exercises, and it's a lot of, again, engaging and peer-to-peer. And so thinking for me of how can I take some of that same information and do it online? And would that be students doing it at their own pace, or would I want it to be, you know, at a set class time? It really made me rethink some of the content that I'm presenting on the ground and how I can change some of that to be a little bit more energizing as well. So again, I think that's a little bit of what I've learned. I'm still learning, so I'm excited to hear and learn along with you from the rest of our panelists. But again, if you haven't taken the training, I would highly encourage it. It really gave me a good perspective on, even honestly for my on-the-ground coursework, how can I make that stronger?
Does anyone have any specific questions or responses for Andrea?
What platform have you used? Like, we use Engage for our online. I'm just wondering if we're spread out among different platforms, or if we're all talking about a similar, like you mentioned Blackboard.
Oh, sure. Right, so I primarily use Blackboard.
Is anybody else on the panel using anything different for any other classes? And
I think there's two other providers,
yes.
Yeah.
So there's,
TRTW and Wiley.
yes. And then you said you guys are using Engage,
Which is through Wiley.
which is through Wiley. Got it. And also, you know, a lot of folks here may have teaching responsibilities elsewhere, so I'm also using Canvas in my teaching at the University of Maryland. So if you have questions about other systems, the principles will be the same. So even though we're going to probably be focusing a lot on Blackboard because that's what we're all using up here, you know, the same sorts of concepts, the best practices are going to translate across platforms. And we typically have folks around campus with expertise in all the different platforms that you'll be working with. So if we're not the right people to help you, we can help put you in touch with folks who are, or give you some coaching on, you know, just general best practices.
Jumping off of what you're saying real quick, Joy, one thing that we're focusing on in CTRL right now is focusing on those best practices that aren't specific to one particular platform. So one thing, not just platform to platform, but even kind of breaking down the wall between online and in-person. We really want faculty to be teaching medium agnostic, that they just know the best practices that will apply whether they're online or in person or hybrid. It's not so compartmentalized, this is online learning, this is face-to-face learning anymore. We want to bring those together and make one cohesive learning center.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. In our office, we work with folks who are teaching fully online, hybrid, or face-to-face classes. It's really just about supporting folks who want to try to use the technology. And I think I can say from my own experience, and I'm curious to know if Michelle and Adele agree as well, because Andrea mentioned this, but do you find that the online teaching experience is informing your face-to-face teaching and vice versa?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So good teaching is good teaching, you know, regardless of how you deliver. So hopefully all these things will translate. Does anyone have any other specific questions for Andrea? All right, well, let's hear a little bit about what Adele's got going on in biology.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to mimic a little bit of what Andrea said because, so with my class, it's structure and function of the human body, and so I do teach this during the year. I teach it both fall and spring semester, and then also during the summer. So I do it a lot. I change it every time, of course, but I do it a lot. So the first thing is take the courses. The online training course was so helpful, as we were talking about, for both my face-to-face and online courses. My syllabus has gotten 5,000 times better because I took the online training course on top and I use it for both my face-to-face class as well as my online class. So it really helps shape my syllabus and the way I think about designing my courses. So it's not just for online, it also works really well for your face-to-face courses. But I really wanted to try the online just because we offer all of our online courses over the summer. And so as a term faculty, I wanted to be able to do something over the summer, but I also take my child out of daycare over the summer, right? So yeah, so I wanted that flexibility to be able to teach online, not have to be on campus. So that's kind of really why I wanted to do the online teaching, but I was a little bit nervous at first, I have to say, because you know, when you're face-to-face with students, you feel like you get to know them a little bit. You get that feedback right away just by looking at their faces and knowing what they're thinking when you're talking to them and stuff like that. But in some cases, I've realized that I get to know the personalities of my online students a lot better than I do my face-to-face students because I have 45 students in a classroom on face-to-face. I have 13 on my online course that finishes on Thursday. And every week, I have them do discussion board posts that have opinions in them. So it's not just answering fact-based science questions. I also go into, one of the weeks they have to do a profile of someone who would most likely have cardiovascular disease. And then they have the question, so if someone leads an unhealthy lifestyle, should insurance cover them? Should their premiums be more? Things like that. So I get them, this is a gen ed class. They're not science majors. I want them to think about the fact that, yeah, they use science in the real life. Even if they're not a science person, they still need to think about these things and how it can affect them. So, and then I have them respond to each other's posts, to a couple of each other's, and you start to really see the personalities develop going back and forth. And so I actually have an understanding of who these students are, a lot more than I do with my face-to-face students, because doing full class discussions with 45 students, you don't have everyone talk. It's really hard to get everyone to talk. And so this is kind of forcing everyone to have their opinion out there. And so I actually have a lot of fun with those discussion board posts. But with that comes a little bit of how often do I get involved with the discussion? So I kind of go back and forth. Do I add my 2 cents in? How do I facilitate some of these discussions to go further? And so rubrics. Rubrics are key, and being very detailed, I think, are key for these online courses. So in my rubric, for my discussions, I have one of the things that said, one of the little things in the rubric basically says, how does it facilitate the community discussion? And so they have to actually, do they ask questions to the person? Do they not just say, yes, I agree, no, I don't agree? They have to follow it up with facts and actually have something there. So with online teaching, I found that you have to be very detailed as to what you want. A lot more so than face-to-face, I think. I don't know what the difference is there, but I feel like you have to be really detailed. I put out my rubrics right away. They have the entirety of the course basically in front of you at the beginning of the 7 weeks. They can work, it's asynchronous, they can work as far ahead as they want, but they have to meet the deadlines. But as long as I have those rubrics laid out, I have less email coming in, questions every 5 seconds about, wait, what did you mean by that? I have it as detailed as I possibly can get it so that that cuts down on them being confused and then me getting a ton of emails and answering questions. So for me, it's a lot more grading than it is during my face-to-face classes, but I have a lot of fun doing it because of these different interactions that I get with these students. I also do some labs with them, take-home labs. So they do a cardiovascular lab where they exercise and do their heart rate pre and post and everything. And so they answer a bunch of questions, or I have them do a food diary and activity log for 3 days and answer questions about that for the digestive system. So there's still active learning you can do online. You just have to be kind of creative about it and thinking about how these students are really going about thinking about it. So I've had a lot of fun developing this course. There's always more to do, but I have to say, take the training, be very organized. So I have each week organized to look exactly the same so that there's nothing that they should know from week to week, and just details with them. I think that's.
Any specific questions or comments for Adele?
Would it be possible for you to share some of the rubrics that you have prepared?
Sure. Yeah, I can send them to Joy.
Yeah,
so
sure. Yeah,
Joy
happy
help
to.
with them. So.
Rubrics are
That's her thing.
Yeah. Everybody who knows me knows, like Trina's nodding, I'm obsessed with rubrics. So if you want to talk rubrics, please call me anytime.
I will send them to Joy and then you can
Sure.
send them.
Yeah, and if you don't mind sharing, I'd love to be able to show them other faculty.
Of course.
I'll show you my examples all the time. You'll be sick of it. It's always nice to have other people's. And I will say from my own experience of using rubrics, in addition to making things really clear and transparent for students, I find it makes my grading much more efficient. Would you guys agree with that?
And no
Definitely.
questions from students too.
Exactly.
I don't get a lot of questions about why did I get this grade or that grade. And I encourage them to read the rubric before they start the assignment. I remind them every single time, to the point where I feel like I'm just like a broken record, but no one can ever say I didn't tell them something. It's really important because you'll find, I think, that the time goes by very quickly. 6 or 7 weeks flies by. So the more you can put in their hands and allow them to figure out on their own, the easier it is for you, and honestly, the easier it is for them, because we're all juggling our own commitments.
Right. Actually, one more thing about like putting things in their hands. I do videos showing them how to use the Blackboard site. So I will put it in student mode, which you can do on Blackboard, so that they can actually see from their perspective where everything is. I talk them through uploading an assignment, where to look for grades, all of that stuff. So hopefully they all watch it. I can't guarantee it, but I try to do that so that, because I mean, you start teaching, I had no idea how to use Blackboard. They're just like, here's your Blackboard site. I'm like, great. But I mean, the students are the same way when they first start using Blackboard, and especially with an online course where there's new ways of watching lectures and getting to videos and stuff like that, which you don't normally do in a face-to-face class. So I make sure I do videos so that they can actually see how to do things.
And I think that's a really important point, because I think a lot of times I hear people talking about students and saying, oh, they're digital natives. They know how to do this stuff.
No.
Do they?
No.
No. You know, folks in the peanut gallery, they might be really awesome at Facebook, but that doesn't mean that they know how to navigate Blackboard.
And they make your face look silly.
Right, they put reindeer antlers on you or whatnot. But it's not really a transferable skill that we're going to be, embracing here in the academy. So I definitely agree, like providing that structure for students is really valuable. And this is why we have these people on the panel, because they do these awesome things that everyone should do. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, well, gosh, I'm going to be a brand new online instructor and I don't have time to make my own videos. Well, guess what? Guess what we do in my office? We make instructional videos. So we have things that you can use in your sites. We can also help you come up with some custom stuff that you can use. If you're teaching in another platform, you can come in and we can teach you best practices for how to create your own instructional videos with your cell phone, with your webcam, or we can even take you into the studio and shoot you with our videographer. So we have a videographer in our office. Another thing I want to share with you is if you're brand new to all this and you're feeling like, gosh, all these things they're talking about are so great, but there's no way I can get that done. we have a lot of these things available for you. So for example, if you need a little blurb about all the technical requirements of Blackboard, I've already written that for you, and it's already been vetted by the people who work in the Blackboard office. So there's a lot of things we can share. I have a collection of rubrics. I can literally copy them right into your course or send them to you. We have all the university boilerplate, all the things you're supposed to put in your syllabus about which office does this and that. We have that already made as documents and as Blackboard pages. So if you call me in my office and say, you know what, I really don't want to write all this or figure it out for myself, we can give it to you. We have syllabus templates. We have Blackboard course templates.
That's key.
Yeah, we've got all kinds of stuff we can share with
Blackboard
you.
course template.
And that syllabus template is, how did you put it?
I use
Platform agnostic?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is lovely.
I
like
like
that.
face-to-face and
Yeah.
online.
It's just a good syllabus,
It is
so
very
it doesn't matter if it's online or face-to-face. And one thing I think I failed to mention is I also recently got certified through Quality Matters to be a peer reviewer. So if you're teaching an online course and you need somebody to just go through and give you some feedback, ideas, suggestions, that's a service that we can offer as well. So please don't be shy about taking advantage of the things that we've already done, because we're really trying to think about ways to make your job easier. And if there's something we don't have that you need or want, we'd love your feedback. We have tip sheets, instructional videos, all kinds of things, including things that are student facing that you can hand out to your students, post in a course site, whatever. So don't be shy about talking to us. Any other comments or questions for Adele? All right. So our next speaker is Michelle Lansigan, and Michelle brought some amazing PowerPoint slides, and I will drive them for you if you want. You can just say next slide, right? So let me go ahead and pull that up. And I'm going to tell you guys that I'm really biased because I am obsessed with criminalistics. So I always really get excited talking to Michelle about her classes because I just want to know all the stuff. All right, take it away.
So I teach Capstone 50 Criminalistics, Crime and Society, and I always have good enrollment because, as I mentioned, not everybody's interested in criminalistics. So I think Andrea and Adele has mentioned so many things about best practices, and one thing I'm going to add to that is that get to know your students before your classes start, not just for online but face-to-face. So what I do is I send out what I call as a pre-class.
Oh yeah, take it.
What I call as a pre-class survey. So I ask my students, for example, have you taken a chemistry class before? Or what crime case specifically would you like me to cover? So for example, recently, O.J. Simpson got paroled, so it's going to be released. And I just got a ton of comments like, we want you to discuss, O.J. Simpson. And then 2 years ago, there's this interesting case. I'm not sure if you've heard about Stephen Avery. It's a documentary called Making a Murder. I haven't watched that documentary.
Oh my
But
goodness.
no, I watch it now.
Okay.
But because of the survey, I found out that students are so interested. I got to watch it, incorporated it into my classes. So I learned so much from them. I also asked questions like, what instructional methodologies work best for you? And I have options there, for example, PowerPoint lectures, lengthy video lectures, like 60-minute video lectures, short video lectures. So I know what they want. And they want PowerPoint lectures posted and short video clips. So I said, okay, I can work with that. And then they also said, we just want the course to be organized. So that's one thing that I think needs to be done by everybody. So basically, their responses allow me to get to know the class population. I know if are they freshmen, are they graduating, are they from not from the U.S. because I've had students from London and Turkey, so things like that. And then it gives me an idea of what students expect from the course, and it allows me to tailor the class material. So I can do like a special topic section at the end where I incorporate what they want to learn, which are typically outside my comfort zone at the time, but I get some time to put them together. And so in terms of being organized, I would say just organize your course Blackboard site because there's nothing so like a turn off if they see your Blackboard site being so all over the place. So I have different segments. So my first segment would be all about course information. And I would have there, something about my profile, in the About the Course section, I have my course syllabus uploaded. And just like what Adele does, I do also a course introduction video. So I don't use a typical app. So I'm gonna highlight my app. I use an app called Explain Everything. So it's this one. So Sarah Grace will be doing a tutorial, I think, on Wednesday next week. There's a small fee for it, but it just allows me to record, an actual website where I navigate it.
There's a fee for the app, but not for
For the app,
right?
sorry, yes, for the app, yes. So let me just show you a quick video that I prepared. And this is using Explain Everything. And Joy taught me how to put captions on my,
Oh,
the
internet.
Oh, you know what?
There's
Maybe
no
it's the internet.
Yeah, so
Oh,
Yeah, here, I got you.
Okay.
I got you. Keep talking.
All right, so it allows me, so what I did was I opened my Blackboard site and then I navigate myself going through each. So this is where you find your course syllabus, this is where you upload your assignment, this is where you find week 1, this is where you get exams and so on. And so I literally received no questions about where things are. So I just did that this third time. The second time I did it, like I explained it thoroughly in my announcement. But they don't they don't really visualize it. But when you show it as a video, they know where to find things. And so that's what I did. And then maybe it's okay if I don't show the video.
Maybe we could send the link when we sell Adele's. Rubric.
rubrics.
Yeah, I don't know why. It may be where we are. We're just not getting it.
That's okay.
Yeah,
That's fine. Yeah. And I also organize it per week and I indicate the date so they don't get confused. So sometimes I deploy it, 2 weeks at a time, but as much as possible, I want to go through my schedule, but other students requested, I'm working full time, can I do things ahead? So I just post it all at the same time. And that's good if you have everything prepared, but if not, you have the freedom to just deploy this amount of thing that you want. And in each week, I have there my lecture notes for the week. I have the videos for them to watch, the discussion, and the homework they need to do. So they know that these are the things I need to do for that week. And for my videos, I don't do lengthy ones. I just do like 5-minute ones, 5 to 10 minutes max. And I did that during my second time teaching it, and I checked the statistics. Nobody was watching it. And so what I did in one of the workshops, Laura, she suggested, why not have a quiz embedded in the video? And that's what I did this time. So I had a quiz. I put it either at the beginning, middle, or end. It's like a 5-point quiz, and they will not be able to answer the quiz if they didn't watch the video. And I checked 100%, statistics on everybody watched it. And everybody was able to answer the quiz because it's really easy. You just have to watch it. And so I felt really good about that because even though it's just like 5 minutes, it takes an hour to prepare it. So I feel good that students are watching it. And then I have another segment that shows where they need to submit stuff. So this is their case study. This is where they submit the exam. I also put rubrics, and Joy is the rubric queen. She helps me craft out all those rubrics. So I have it all there as well. They have it in their syllabus too. So there's no reason for them not to find where they are. So it's all there. And for the exams, it just gives me peace of mind that they're not cheating. I use the Respondus lockdown software. And what I did was, so I worked with Joy and, what's his name again?
Ryan.
Ryan, yes. So I worked with Ryan, and they helped me set up my Blackboard page. So basically, I also made a sample test first, just to make sure that when they download the Respondus software, everything is working. So I told them, answer the practice test first using the software. If that doesn't work out, let me know so I know what's going on. And if that works out fine, then go ahead and answer the exam. So it works out perfectly fine. First exam, so far no questions and no issues. And I'm doing the exam again this week because classes end this week. Yes. And then just some takeaways. So engage your students. For the discussion post that I have, I really don't comment in each and every one because it takes too much time. So what I do is I summarize their comments and I highlight the name of the students who mentioned like something really thought-provoking or something really interesting. And I think every week students step up and say, hey, I want my name mentioned or something like that. So I think this my discussions for this session are a lot better. And I let them respond at least once to another student's post, and they're graded on that. So it shows in the rubrics that these are your grades for this particular response that you have. And then just grade efficiently. I'm lucky they gave me a TA. to grade the papers, and their paper was due, for example, on Saturday, and I'm not able to release it today because it's the TA has graded it, and I just looked at it, and there's no questions because again I used well-crafted rubrics for this part, and just set expectations for you and the students because I know their expectations based on their pre-class survey, but they also know what to expect from my class because coming in, they thought they're gonna learn how to get away with murder. I'm not gonna do that. So it's basically you're gonna learn the science of solving crime. So it just lays out a platform on how I could map out the whole course. So this is my third time teaching it, and every time there's a ton of revisions and a ton of new assessments, and I'm learning new things. So I highly recommend going to the workshops because every time, even if it's advanced training already, there would be always something new and new and new. Yeah.
Does anyone have any specific questions or comments for Michelle?
One thing that I would say, Michelle and Adele both mentioned the discussion forums for students and how much to respond to them and whether to engage in every single one. And even in addition to the time standpoint of it being too laborious, there's research that shows that it's just not the best way to form a community to respond to every single student. You want them to be independent, you want them to become autonomous learners. And that's not going to happen if you're jumping in every single time and saying, this is right, this is not right, here's what the actual answer is. You want them to form opinions on their own and engage with their peers and help each other learn in that. I think that's a big difference between online and in person.
So one example I could cite about that. So I have a crime case, and I have all this evidence, I have all these suspects, and then I tell them, based on this evidence, who do you think is the killer? And I do a post-first discussion forum where they post and then they give their reasons, and they would have different answers, and at the end I would post out, this is the correct killer based on this. And I think they would have the aha moment, oh yeah, she's right. But it was a good exchange of information from one student to another.
And I also share the philosophy of not being too engaged in discussions because I find that if I'm involved, the students will direct everything to me because I'm the expert, which is funny because I teach human geography. It's literally everything in the world. I'm not Google, I don't know. So one thing I do, however, is I have the students introduce themselves in the discussion forum the first week. That's a pretty general practice. And I will respond to everybody when they introduce themselves. Because
is it via Cultura, a video? Or
no, they just do a discussion post.
Yeah,
This time, so I usually give them a question. Oh, can I tell you guys what I did this time? Because I'm really proud of myself. Okay. So this time, I had them come up with a little geographic mystery. So what they had to do was post a picture of themselves in a place that's important to them, so we could see what they look like. And I said, oh, if you don't want to be in the picture, it's okay. So pick a place that's important to you or a place that's geographically significant. So of course I was totally stacking the deck in my favor because I'd just come back from Iceland. And I stood in the crack between the plates, whereas I was I'm in between, Eurasia and North America. So they had to not reveal where they were, but give a couple of clues that would allow one of their classmates to figure it out, either by using their own knowledge of the world or something that they could go and research on Google or whatever. So for my facts, I'd taken the picture March 21st, and there was snow on the ground, and I'm all bundled up. So I'm this picture was taken on the first day of spring. It's someplace cold, someplace probably in the northern hemisphere, right? This place is geologically significant. It's where the plate boundaries are diverging. I told them about all the things my family members ate while we were there. I'm vegetarian, so I had no part of this. They ate the fermented shark. They ate the lamb hearts. They ate a cod that was an entire cod's head that our waiter pointed out mysteriously looked like Donald Trump. I'll send you guys the picture if you want to see it. It was really funny. And then I can't remember what the other fact was. So the students each had to come up with their own little puzzle, and then the required response for the week was they had to try to guess one other student's place based on the clues. And so the students had to come back and then say, yep, you were right, I was in Rome. Or nope, not quite, I wasn't in this Virgin Island, I was in that Virgin Island. So I think it was an opportunity for the students to start thinking geographically, particularly because, like many of us, I'm teaching a gen ed class. So some of my students are majors, but for the most part, they're taking the class because they have to. and they have no idea what geography is. So it's not just memorizing state capitals anymore, you know, like it's asking questions and coming up with answers. And so I try to give them things that are a little bit of a activity, but they're doing it more collaboratively. So there's a lot of different ways you can utilize the discussion forums.
I think I found, I had to do this once this time around, is that I found that if I saw something that I would see over and over and over again, I would post kind of my own start to a thread and say, hey guys. So for example, like cardiovascular disease, and they had to do a profile, everyone came up with a male in his like 50s or something like that. I'm like, what about women? Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer in women. And so I, started my own thread, and they were all like, you're right. And so one of my questions was like, so what does this mean about the media? What does this mean about, this information in the public if all of you guys said this and no one said this? And so it's really interesting to get everyone's, I got a lot of feedback from doing that, but I'll find that instead of replying to everyone's post, that if there's something that I feel like everyone should see, I would put it up there and ask a couple more questions so that everyone kind of thinks, oh yeah.
And I think with those introduction posts, one of the things we talk about in e-learning is this idea of instructor presence, because you're not physically there. So you want the students to feel like you're there. You're not just some robot program to grade papers.
Yes.
So I really try to remind them that I'm a real life human, not a machine, and also that they should be nice to me because I'm a real life human, not a machine. So in that first introductory forum, I do reply to each student just so that they feel that sense of connection, like I tried to learn something about them, and I try to make a connection. So like if a student says, I love Game of Thrones, I'm like, oh my God, I love it too. Who's your favorite character? To just try to get that little bit of interaction that you would maybe have in a classroom with students as they're coming in or leaving for the day. I mean, the last time I taught face-to-face, I taught on Monday mornings. It was like the first half hour of class. We had to talk about Game of Thrones. It was so funny. I was like, no spoilers. You can say the thing that happened to that thing, but you can't, So it really helped, and what I noticed is I give my students a survey each week because I can't gauge how they're doing by looking at them. So it's as short as 5 questions. It's like a Likert scale, strongly agree, strongly disagree. The course was well organized this week. The amount of work we did was reasonable for what the credit we're getting. Overall the unit was excellent, good, fair, So I get a little feedback, and what I noticed last summer was because I responded to everybody's introduction, in the first week, several students pointed out they'd never had an online instructor act like they actually cared about them as people. So I really advocate, that first week, try to make that connection, and then you can kind of start to pull back. And I also kind of moderate my involvement as the semester progresses, so that they become more autonomous. So the first couple discussion forums, sometimes I'll put a post up first, so they can kind of see what I'm looking for. I kind of model the kind of response that I want them to give. And then as the session wears on, I'm kind of doing less and less of that and kind of letting them spread their wings and fly.
I think exactly what Joy was saying is really important because, so I mentioned in the beginning that I'm a student in an online program. It's through Purdue, and it's a learning design, instructional design program. And you'd think of all programs like that, the faculty in that program would be well equipped to meet online learners' needs. And it's not bad. I'm not going to try and trash my school or anything like that, but until this particular class that I've been in, it certainly felt like there was very little instructor presence. Certainly someone set up the course initially and they did a great job, but going throughout the 8-week term, there was very little interaction with the instructor, so you didn't really feel like there was an actual person there helping you along. And until this semester, like I said, it was a huge difference. You felt like there was someone who was actively participating in your learning, and it makes a huge deal. And tying that back into what we do in CTRL, I think there is a perception of online learning as this new thing, and I'm just going to jump into it. But if we wrap it back into the world of just teaching and learning, regardless of where you are doing it, I think it's easier to think about the student and their needs and best practices, whether it's in person or online.
Yeah, and I think, just speaking again to this point about instructor presence, again, I'm sorry to beat the rubric horse, but it's my favorite thing. But what I find is that by having a really detailed rubric, I can provide much more individual feedback. Because I've already done the boring stuff, that you write the same things over and over again. watch your sentence structure, cite your sources, you find yourself. So if you put those common errors in the rubric, you don't have to mention them again. You can instead focus on what that specific student needs to do differently or better next time. So I'm giving them all the general feedback, and then I'm like, for you, next week, you should concentrate on this. And I think, again, it really kind of customizes the experience. So you might feel like, oh, well, using a rubric makes me kind of more of a robot, and there's like, I don't find that to be the case at all. I think it allows me to think more critically about what my students need instead of just having to write the standard stuff about, the basics. How do you guys feel about that?
I agree.
It takes a long time to make a rubric, but once you've done one, it's easier to tweak it for other stuff as well.
Yeah, I use the same basic model
Yes.
for each of my rubrics, but I change it for the assignment, so make it a little bit more specific for the assignment itself. But for the most part, it's the same kind of categories, the grammar or whatever. It's like introduction, all that stuff is there, but the explanation changes a little bit each time. The one thing I found that I do at the beginning, so my course set up as weeks as well, same as Michelle, and so each week is like 2 body systems. And so the beginning, so the first thing they see when they go to the content part of the week is there's a video of me introducing the week. So they actually see me talking to them. It's just casual. This is what we're doing this week. It's if it's like our digestive or urinary system, like it's really complicated. There's a lot of steps. Let me know if you get confused through the lectures. So they know there's a face there, and it's not. And I actually remember the first time I ever sat in on one of these kind of things for online teaching. The person who was talking was like, first time I ever taught online, my evaluations were awful. They didn't even know there was an instructor because she had no videos, nothing. That they she's like, the next time I did videos, I did all this stuff, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, And so that's what I was like, okay, I need them to see me, know that I'm there. So each week there's at least a video of me introducing the week.
Great.
And it doesn't need to be high tech either.
Oh, it's like it's Kaltura, just 1 minute, 2 minutes at the most.
Right. I think there's, to plug these trainings more, I think there's a session tomorrow afternoon about using just your cell phone for instructional purposes, just recording videos, and it could be for weekly introductory videos. Simple as that.
Yeah, so Adele mentioned Kaltura. I know Michelle also uses Kaltura. Kaltura is an embedded video recording thing in Blackboard that we have access to at AU. So you don't have to have a special program, but you can, as the others have mentioned, use other devices, other systems, explain everything, or YouTube, or whatever you want to use. It doesn't have to be our thing, but I wanted to mention it to y'all because it is there, it is available to you. And consider your options. So I teach a discipline that has a lot of field work involved. So the cool thing about being able to make videos with a cell phone is I can do it from the place. This is the landscape. I can show it to them. So think a lot about what you're trying to accomplish with your students. What are your learning outcomes? What are you wanting them to take away from the course? And use those decisions to drive what technology you use versus the other way around. Don't let the technology dictate your decisions. If you want to be out in the field, don't feel like you need to use some formal video capture software. It's not necessary. If you want to have more of a casual, sort of informal relationship with your students, make your own videos at home on your laptop. If you want something more formal, then we can shoot you in the studio and make it formal. So, kind of think about, who you are, what's your teaching style, what's the content, what does it lend itself to, and what are you wanting students to get out of it. A lot of times, I just want to model for them that this stuff doesn't have to be hard. I can do this at home on my laptop, so can you. And you can have your students do those things as well. So, for example, if you are using Blackboard in your class, students can make video recordings with Kaltura as well. Do any of you guys have your students do that?
Not yet.
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. So they can record themselves, they can upload it as a discussion post. And this is especially great if you have a student who needs some kind of accommodation for a disability. Maybe you have a student where typing on the computer is difficult for them for whatever reason. They can make a video. They can make a voice recording. We can give our students options in the online space that aren't always that easy to do face-to-face. And so there's a lot of cool opportunities to be creative. I really enjoy the problem-solving aspect of doing all of this. I like feeling like, how can I do a field trip online? That's like a fun challenge. Maybe I'm a sick person, I don't know. But if you don't want to invest the time and energy into thinking about that, you're welcome to come to my office, and I'll be happy to put my brain to it if that would be helpful to you. So you've heard a lot about what we think. So I think we'd love to hear what specific questions, concerns, asking for advice, anything we can contribute. And David has offered to facilitate a Q&A with all of you. So yeah, what do you want to know? What do you think? What can we do for you?
I have a question. I've had at least one student in every online class that really just I think because our program is so scientific, and then they get to my classes and they're very like patient cases or client cases, and there's suddenly a lot of writing, and it's connecting the two worlds. And a few people just haven't done that in a while, or they're just not wired that way or anything. So I've tried to connect them to the writing center here, and I've had difficulty because either it's being organized, or I guess I don't understand the system of it. I'm just wondering if any of you have. So yeah,
I think we have an expert on one.
Yeah,
Can you
give them your
this?
email? But yeah, and I guess I've learned to try to tap into this early on now because it took too long the first time around. And so, yeah, what would you suggest?
Okay. There used to be the Writing Center and the Writing Lab, which are now being combined under the ASAC umbrella.
Okay.
So all the tutors are going to be in the library now. And if you want to have, this is more for a face-to-face class, but we can visit and we can go to your class and talk about what we do, and this is how you make an appointment, this is where the appointments are, come here, do this, this is, we're coming for this, we're coming for that, whatever. We're also starting to do online sessions, which I think the Writing Lab used to do, but which I never worked for, so I don't know. But so we're now going to have both in-person sessions and online sessions.
So are the online sessions like pre-recorded sessions that we can tap into, or are they one-on-one tutoring?
No, they're going to be one-on-one tutoring. Okay. It's all one-on-one tutoring, unless it's like a group of students that are working on a paper together or something, but they're all tutoring sessions.
So they would just contact the Writing Center, which is online. You can,
everything makes them fun online. And like I said, if you want to have any of the tutors come into your class, or even if it's an online class to kind of, I don't know, make a video or a presentation or something like that, we can do that. Talk about
that's a good idea.
What we do.
Yeah, and I want to add.
I think it was a good idea for because I think they're suddenly writing a ton after they've been very scientific for too long.
Yeah, you see.
So
you see a lot of that.
Yeah. Okay.
And in terms of resources, I will say that as AU has invested more in having people like me and David and our colleagues here on campus, there are various initiatives around kind of packaging up some of these resources. So for example, we have a module in the library on research skills for college writing that's used in the intro college writing class that every new student takes in the fall. If you find you have a need for those kinds of resources, we're happy to work with the other staff here on campus to put some stuff together that literally could be pushed out to many different classes. So that college writing module, it goes into 106 sections of college writing at the beginning of every semester. We just did a diagnostic quiz for the COM 200 class. The students need to have some basic writing skills to be successful. So they came over and we developed a quiz. It's pretty sophisticated. It's stratified by topic, and the questions are randomized so that students, if they're sitting together, can't necessarily just copy off each other. But it's going to be, copied into every section of COM 200. So there's ways we can do this with efficiencies, particularly if some of your colleagues are having the same issues in their classes. Feel free to come and talk to us, because we might have some solutions for you, either from projects we're already working on or things that we could develop in partnership with you. Does that sound like how y'all would approach it too, David?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Sure.
I do think, just adding on, I think the idea of having a little clip of the resource or someone from the resource talking is great, because I know for on-the-ground classes, when I've had someone physically come, then that person has been more resourced, or even, in my work, when I'm working with a student and I'm referring them to a campus resource, if it's a specific person, I will often pull up their profile to put a face to the name. For some reason, I've not done a statistical analysis of this, but it seems like that person is then more likely, or the person seems more energized, just because, again, they're connecting with it's an actual person. It's not the writing center, it's Amy, So I think that does help.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Also related to the writing, I know you guys use rubric for grading papers and stuff, but how do you do more feedback online? Like, I teach face-to-face, but I always ask my students to submit their papers online. I try to do the feedback on Blackboard, but I want to know, like, what are your tricks on doing that?
Great question. Anybody want to start that?
So do you use inline grading as well?
They submit the paper, and then I have a section where I can comment, like, on the paper.
Okay.
And I have the rubric that I just basically copy and paste with the numbers, and then I give a score. I've been doing that, but I don't know if that's the best way.
So that's what I also do. So when they submit a paper to me, I make my comments in the paper, and then I grade, and then also have a general feedback. So you can put like an overall feedback before you hit submit, so they can see what your overall feedback is, aside from the detailed ones that are found in the paper.
I wanted to show it to you, but we don't have internet.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I could just show you what it looks like while she's talking about it. I apologize.
Right. You can highlight sections of the paper that you
And I
think.
know you do like just write it once, so to give feedback and give a chance them to like fix and then go
So
again.
you can do that too, but it takes quite a lot of
time.
time. So what I just tell my students is that this is the deadline. You can give me your drafts a week before the deadline. I can give you my general comments about it and then give it back to them. And then they submit their final paper. But I don't, grade it and then give it back because it's
a
too
lot.
much work. So
So, I mean, the courses here that are 7 weeks, they're 7-week online courses, they're exactly the same credit as a normal semester course. So you're fitting an entire semester into 7 weeks because it's the same amount of credit, so they have to do the same amount of work. So it's a lot in a short amount of time. So the turnaround and getting things graded, you just need to do it as fast as you really can. Like I try to, so all their stuff is due on Sundays at noon for the most part, and I try to have everything back to them by Wednesday or Thursday of the following week so that they really know where they are in the course as they're going along. So they should have no questions about their final grade when it comes to the end.
And I have a similar situation, except my class is only 6 weeks, and it's also 15 weeks of content delivered in 6 weeks. So one of the things I've done is I still wanted my students to have the opportunity to do some sort of project to explore their own interests, because that's what's cool about geography is it's everywhere. Get it? The way I handled that in the 6-week period is I scaffolded the assignment so they were submitting little pieces of it periodically so I could give them feedback before it was too late. So the first time I did it, I think I had them submit like a draft in week 4 and then their final was due in week 6. That didn't cut it. They needed more time, particularly because they're covering a lot of material in a very short space. So this time what I had them do was submit a proposal in week 2 of telling me what their topic was, why it's geographically relevant, and showing me they could connect it to at least 2 of the major themes of the course, just to see if they were on the right track. Then the next assignment in week 4 was to submit a first draft, and all I asked them to do was take the 2 examples they had in their proposal and flesh them out. So they didn't have to turn in a complete draft, but I had to see that they were capable of taking those ideas and implementing them. And then the project was due today at 11:59 p.m. What I did discover, though, was given the pace of the course, the students were not doing great on the proposals. Some of them just didn't get it. And I was very concerned they weren't going to get it. And if they were so worried about this project, they weren't going to learn anything, right? They were going to be so fixated on this one thing, not realizing everything in the class is weighted the same. So the project's the same as any one exam, which is the same as homework, which is the same as discussion. But whatever reason, they think the project's the most important thing, even though it carries the same weight. An exam's the most important thing, even though it carries the same weight. They'll put in hours and hours studying for an exam, but like not spend any time at all on discussion posts. It's really interesting. Yes, they all count the same. So what I did, and this is one of the nice things about teaching online, is you can be responsive and flexible if you need to be. I said, you know what, I'm worried that you guys really don't have the time you need to be successful at this, so I'm going to give you the option. If you want to continue with the project, if you got a good score on your proposal and you're feeling good and comfortable, you can still do it. If you're not, I'll just write another exam. And you can do your final assessment as a final exam. Because it's not, if they're not going to learn anything, then there's no, I'm happy to do that. So it was a little extra work for me to write the extra exam, but the students then took that pressure off, and the ones who were into the project could still do it, and they didn't feel disappointed, and the ones who were just struggling and just not quite there had a way out. And some of them opted for the exam after doing the draft, realizing that, okay, the progress they'd made in the previous 2 weeks probably wasn't enough, or they were kind of on the wrong track. And so it kind of gave them the option to bail out. And then it means I grade fewer bad projects at the end of the semester, right? I'm grading the ones of the students who are into it, who are excited, who get it, and then my experience is better as well as their experience.
But you grade more exams.
Yes, but those grade themselves.
That's what
Because they're multiple choice, which is a gen ed class.
And which kind of guidance you gave for the proposal?
I give ridiculously explicit instructions. If you want to see them, I'll send them to you. Like, grab my card and feel free to email me. I'll email them to you. You can have them. But I mean, really, really explicit down to this is how many words you might want to write for this section. Like, I don't believe in word count or page count because, then you just get a lot of adverbs and adjectives. And I don't write like that, and I don't like to read writing like that. So I say, this is what I think you need. This is an estimate of how much I think you need to write to do this, but if you can do it in less, that's great. I'm happy with that. So it's very, very specific, with very specific prompts they're supposed to answer.
Any other questions about grading, student expectations, online experience, anything?
Is there anything that you guys are nervous about when you think about the idea of teaching online?
I'm not nervous about it, but a friend of mine, she was nervous, saying that she's struggling a lot with the software that is acquired. She learns to deliver this course.
Is she here at AU?
She was an adjunct. She's an adjunct, and she teaches face-to-face courses. But this time, I think she was given the option to teach an online course. And when I asked how it's going, she's going, I'm struggling a lot with the software.
Yeah.
Workshops.
Please, if she's here at AU, please encourage her to come to the workshops or to schedule to come in for a face-to-face training, either with the folks at CTRL or with us in the Blackboard office, depending on what her needs and what platform she's teaching in. I'll tell you that during the morning sessions, I was answering the phones in our office, and from these, I got 2 requests for consultations because somebody said, oh, if you need help with this, you can call Joy. And so I picked up the phone and somebody said, oh, you're actually at your desk. And I was like, yeah, I work here. And he's like, oh, well, I was just in this session. Someone just said I should call you. So I just got out my phone and called you and made an appointment. I was like, great. So that's part of what we do. So, you've heard a lot of folks talking about the online training course. We have a lot of different programs going on here. Some of the things that we're doing are kind of following the flux that we're having all around the university with restructuring and reorganization, and we don't necessarily know always when everything's going to be offered because we're still figuring all of that out. So while you're waiting for a formal opportunity to come along, feel free to make an appointment and come in and talk to us about any specific issues. Trina, that's how you learned a lot, right? It was just kind of coming in on a regular basis.
A lot about rubrics. And it's fascinating because rubrics are so helpful, I find, with my online courses because it sets up expectations and helps grading, all that. And that has led its way into my in-person course way more than I probably would have because of the online. Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. So, David, you mentioned the Intro to Online Learning course that is offered to our students, right?
Yeah.
And is that for Blackboard based on, are they different compared to, Wiley has one and Blackboard has one, and do they all go through you all, or do our students automatically get that, or I actually don't know.
That's a fair thing to not know because it's kind of crazy at AU that we have all these different, but my training with students, we do talk about the technical aspects of online learning, and I do focus on Blackboard because the schools that have various programs like Wiley and 2U, they generally have additional resources for the online learning instruction part.
And they're mostly graduate classes.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we do mainly focus on Blackboard, but certainly there is half of the workshop that is just online learning is different than in person, and this is what you need to know, and that will apply to any platform that they're on. But yes, certainly, I don't, from this past years, I don't think there is even one student that came in that was like, oh, I'm not using Blackboard. So, yeah.
Do you have a lot of students come to this?
Maybe like 35 showed up last year. So yeah, not
Just
bad.
curious.
Well, and what I replicated in my own class, because I don't know what they get at Maryland, because I'm a contract employee, I just teach a class and then I'm done. So I created a little unit within my class about the expectations of being an online student. And I found some different resources online that I posted for them. I also explained to them very explicitly why I give them so much work, how credit hours are computed, and how I've come to these conclusions about what's the appropriate amount of work. So again, so they understand, one, what they're getting into, because online classes aren't for everybody. Like if you don't like technology, if you're not comfortable with technology, if you don't like to write, online classes might not be the best option for you because so much of it is this. So I want my students to know right up front, this is what you're getting yourself into, and it's not too late to back out if this isn't for you. This class will be offered again in the regular semester, and I'm not going to dislike you if you drop my class. So at least I can say I told you, if it didn't work out. So if you have questions about the kinds of resources I'm using or the way I approach that, come on in and I'll share them with you. If your students wouldn't be able to make a workshop like that, if they're literally off campus, like around the world, some of our students are and can't come to a workshop, and we could help you put together some things you could deliver through your course that the students could do independently.
That's the other thing thinking about students who are around the world. You have to be somewhat flexible sometimes with due dates, because I do have students who are, I am, in China, and we're on completely flipped, like our time zones, everything's different. So there are times where, with that Blackboard outage that was out the other day, I had a student who was like, I'm traveling to Korea, and so that outage actually happens during the day for me, and so that's when I was going to do my work. So I was like, okay, you'll get you can have an extra day or so to do it. You just have to be flexible because Blackboard outages happen, technical issues happen. You just need to just kind of go with it and just let them do it.
Same thing with that one. Also with office hours, I schedule one in the morning and then one in the evening, just to cater to all students everywhere.
And how do y'all do your office hours?
Collaborate, yeah. No one comes around.
Yeah. So collaborate is
I just sit there. I just have my computer on for 2 hours. And
yeah, I used to do that, and then I was like, by appointment. So I can't sit here and let you watch me work.
I do a Google Doc, a Google spreadsheet with the times, and so they sign up when they would like to come. So I know if somebody's coming and somebody, Sorentel actually taught me that. Like when somebody's coming, somebody's not, you don't have to sit there for a long time. Also do that for my face-to-face classes, so I don't have to sit in my office waiting for students. So they sign up for 15-minute time blocks, and then I check on it like the night before or the morning of, so I know even if do I need to come to campus or not. So.
And the software that they're talking about, Collaborate, is part of Blackboard, and I'm pretty sure there's a workshop on that tomorrow, if any of you guys are interested.
Skype for Blackboard, essentially. So.
But you can also get a free account. I use Zoom because it's free. It gives you can have a 40-minute teleconference with no charge. You just set up an account, and you give the students the thing, they click the link, and you're there. Because UMD, I couldn't figure out how to set up my Adobe Connect account because they didn't send me the link to the instructions was broken, and I was like, oh no, I'll just have my own account. So there's a lot of ways you can do it, and that's also stuff we offer trainings on, where you can come in for a consultation on how to do these sorts of things. It's within our wheelhouse.
Do one nighttime session and one during the day session. The other thing about with online students, most of them work full time and take these classes. A lot of them work full time and take these classes, so they're not available during the day.
Yeah.
And I think you have to also be willing to tolerate a little more stuff than you might in a face-to-face class, just because of the format. So I had a student email me like at midnight. He had taken a picture with his phone of his computer. He got in the blue screen, like his system just crashed, and he was freaking out. So he sent me like a photo he had taken of his computer. And he sent it at like 11:30 p.m. And then I had another message from him at 12:20 saying, please respond, I'm freaking out. I think I'm having a panic attack. And I was like, I'm asleep. I was like, do you know how old I am? Like, do you get that like staying up until 10 o'clock is like difficult for me? I did. I wrote to him, I said, I know it might not seem like it, but I'm not online at all times. So, but I tell them on the syllabus, I'll respond within this much time. I don't feel compelled to do it. I felt bad for him because of the situation he was in, but at the same time, I was like, really?
That's kind of why I switched my due date times from 11:59 to noon. So Sunday at noon, and then like Thursdays at noon, their first discussion.
You're late to troubleshoot?
Yeah, because I found that all of them would, if something happened on the quiz or whatever they were taking, they would email me at 11:30. I'm like, I can't help you. And then by the time I saw it, everything was already due. So I found that if I did it at noon, they would email me maybe the night before. I'm up. I mean, I have 2 little kids. I'm up pretty early in the morning, so I can respond really early in the morning. That gives them a couple hours if they can. And if not, they usually respond pretty quickly. I don't think I get this done by, okay, you can have a little bit more extra time.
I'm stealing that.
So
That's really
I think
good.
Laura actually was the one who mentioned that one time.
Yeah.
So
Well, and the other reason that that's a great practice is if your students might be calling Blackboard support. We have live people in the office from 9 till 5:30 on weekdays, but after hours and on the weekends, it goes to an answering service. And they can troubleshoot really basic stuff, but if it's anything about your particular course or our particular Blackboard, they just put in a technical support ticket for you. And then we get back to you on the next business day. So having a due date while we're physically in the office might not be a bad idea. That's really smart.
All right, that's it. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much for coming, and thank you guys for being here, our star students. If you guys do have other questions, I'm sorry. Here's all our contact information. We also have I've got some Blackboard cards if you want our contact information to take with you, but I think we're pretty easy to find around campus, so please don't hesitate to reach out. All right, thanks, y'all.
Thanks.